Hey, JohnnyRoboManTraining.com. Had a good workout today. Road bike sprints, one arm farmer carry, 10 yards. Went like this. I set the bike, 6 rounds, 20 seconds on as hard as I could. Got off the bike, went out, grabbed a 55-pound dumbbell in one hand, walked it 80 yards, put it down, waited for my time to elapse, got back in, did another 20, 6 rounds. So I wound up, 480 yards of farmer's carries, and a good amount of sprints on the bike. Now, if anybody's ever done sprints, okay, go out and sprint a football field. 100 yards, sprint as fast as you can, okay? Then grab a dumbbell, whatever, and then carry it 80 yards and tell me how you feel. Then recover, because it took me about, 35 seconds to get to recover. So it's not much of recovery time, believe it or not, when you can't breathe. But it's a great workout. And like I said before, I trained the way I lived my life. Now, growing up, I'm older, okay? I lived in an environment where you had a lot of fights. Seen a lot of things, experienced a lot of things. You know, from bouncing, working on a loading dock, seeing fights all the time, being in fights all the time when I was younger, teenager, young man. I see it. Now, my grandson takes jiu-jitsu and wrestles. He's 8. Now, he gets trained by some of the best ever, best in the world. Now, my grandson works out, loves it, wants abs. That's his thing. Anyhow, we go into class the other day, jiu-jitsu, and there's another guy in there. He looks pretty menacing. Every bit playing the part of a black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. And I asked one of the fathers who he was. He told me. So I looked him up. And he's going to take over the training for right now, because the trainer he has right now is going to be going to get a hip replacement. He was an MMA fighter, a professional MMA fighter also. And so I watched it. And so I sat my grandson down after I watched it. And I said, hey, here, we're going to watch this here, bud. And he was fighting for a welterweight title, let's put it that way, welterweight title. And he looked the part. He was ripped. He had the abs. I mean, he looked every bit like this guy. He was a killer. He was a world beater. He gets up there. They go. The guy comes in. He gets caught. He falls the fuck down. He's out. 11 seconds. Looks like a fucking $1 million. Black belt in jiu-jitsu. Didn't even get the fucking touch. Didn't even get the grapple. Okay? Out. Ref jumps in, stops it because he's completely knocked the fuck out. Didn't even look like a fucking much of a punch at all. Now, like I told my grandson, these are good. These are good things to do. They're going to help you out. They're skills. But looking the part and having all the skills doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to always work out for you. So, I'm a big believer in training the way your life could go. In jiu-jitsu and all these other, because jiu-jitsu is a cult. Jiu-jitsu is a cult today. CrossFit's a cult. You can't talk about them because people will fight you. I've heard jiu-jitsu has a stand-up game. Not much of one. Okay, it comes from the stuff they do have is judo and things like that. And I watch. You know, I've seen it. You know, these things are not going to go good in the street for anyone. Okay, so most people are going to avoid it. But one of the things that, you know, people in jiu-jitsu like to do, they like to grab a hold of you. I don't want people holding on to me that I don't know in the streets. I want to keep them at a distance. I want to keep them away from me. That's where striking comes in. Now, everybody swears to God you can get right in there and you can take people down. Well, if somebody has any kind of experience, it's not going to be as easy as people think, because most people that train, they distance themselves from that type of stuff because they know that they are trained and they could hurt somebody. But it doesn't also always mean that they won't be out doing stupid shit. There was a guy the other day getting charged with manslaughter, MMA fighter. I don't know, nobody, just fights in MMA, I guess, and got in a fight at 2 o'clock in the morning in a bar and punched an Air Force guy or something in the back of the head and killed him. Okay? Not done purposely. But then again, nothing good happens at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning in a bar. So, what I see is, what's illegal in jiu-jitsu or in MMA? Headbutts, eye gouging, biting, right? Point of the elbow, pulling hair. I might have said that already. There's a lot of things that are illegal that in the street I have witnessed. As a bouncer, I have witnessed. As a dock worker with a lot of men, I have witnessed. I've been part of these things in the streets as a teenager and as a young man. Luckily, the law wasn't the way it was. Matter of fact, night after or the weekend after I quit bouncing at this one job, that very next weekend, the bouncer let 2 guys go outside and one guy got his ear bit off. Okay? So, whether the guy knew jiu-jitsu or not, it was a good chance, you could get your ear bit the fuck off. But a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys will tell you that, well, when you're in jiu-jitsu, you can also, on the street, gouge and poke and fucking bite and headbutt and hit with the point of the elbow. Problem is, if you train all the time to not do those things, that is not going to be your first fucking thought. You're going to have a hold of somebody, you're going to try to take them to the ground or take them to the ground, so somehow you can put a chokehold on them or you can put an arm bar or somehow, incapacitate them. Meanwhile, if you watch a lot of different things, it's real easy that if you pull somebody on top of you and you put your head this close, your back of your head this close to the asphalt, that's fucking stupid. Okay, not to mention the dude who you pull down on top of you could have a fucking pen. He could stab you in the fucking neck with a pen or in the eye with a pen. But even so, the gouging, the biting, the hair pulling, you're trying to fucking lock my arm the fuck up, I'm gonna fucking probably bite you in the fucking face. Okay? I'm just saying, if you don't train if you don't train for real life, you're going to come to a situation where that fucking may take your life. Okay? If you can't sprint, if you can't get out of you're not strong enough to carry yourself fucking away, or your family is strong enough to carry yourself away. Get up and down fucking hills. If you're not conditioned enough to do these things, you tire out too quick in a fucking fight. It's over. It's over. So no matter how much training you do, but if you don't train the way your life could be, and you don't train these ways, man, you're gonna run into a big fucking problem, somewhere down the road. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Better to be trained than untrained, so at least you can handle yourself if you have to. But don't make the stupid mistake of thinking that if you train the opposite of what you think you're going to do in a real situation, that's stupidity, okay? Because if you don't train that way in your whole fucking life, you're training 3 times a week in the jiu-jitsu gym or MMA, and you're training that way for 10 fucking years, and nobody's catching you with a headbutt to the bridge of the fucking nose, or they're not fucking biting on you or punching your fucking balls or grabbing a hold of your balls or fucking sticking a thumb in your eye, how do you know how you're going to react? Okay? Because they don't train that way. They tell you they train that way. They don't train that way. Okay? Because it's not part of it. It's for competition. It's for sport. Okay? Can save your life, no doubt. But in the real world, if you're not fucking doing what you need to do, and you're not fucking training that way, there's a good chance, man, when it comes down to it, you're not going to fucking be able to do it, and you might wind up a fucking eye less later.